Hello. Well, assessment is on my mind. I'm writing a workshop about it. I'm working on a new book, and I also just finished a blog writing about assessment. And so I just wanted to take a minute, in case video is your preferred medium, to show this particular assessment that I have available on my website as an example. It's just called Sample Assessment 2013, so it's quite old. But I think it still illustrates some really good points about assessing for conceptual understanding and assessing for learning transfer. And so if you have a copy of my book, the first principle that we talk about in chapter 5, which is the assessments chapter, is the fact that transfer is the ultimate goal. Why is transfer the ultimate goal? We want students to use their learning in new situations. That's number one for us, for my co-authors and I. The other reason is because we're fans of Susan Brookhart, who wrote a book called How to Assess Higher Order Thinking in Your Classroom. And what she asserts is that if it's not a new situation, a novel material to the students, then we can't be sure that they're not remembering. If we think about Bloom's taxonomy and higher order thinking, we can't be sure they're not remembering our analysis or our evaluation or our application. And so if we truly want to assess anything above the remember level of the cognitive dimension of the revised Bloom's taxonomy, it has to be a new situation. And that just makes sense. Okay, on to the good stuff. So here we have this example geography exam that we used back when my co-authors and I were a curriculum team at Cesar Chavez Charter School in DC. This was a real exam that we gave to students. And so this first example is map skills. We want to know, can they transfer map skills? So we're not going to show them a map that they've already seen, because we won't know that they're not just remembering what we told them about that particular map. So this is a brand new map that the students have never seen before. And it's saying use this for this. So this was assessing their ability to apply their understanding or their skill of reading a legend. And so we want them, that was one of the learner outcomes, we wanted them to be able to read a legend. And so we gave them a new map with a new legend, and it says 3 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Mountain, 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern. And we want them to infer from that this map is illustrating time zones. And so we put that there. And then we want them to also understand what's the numbers, circles, and descriptions at the bottom. What are those? Are those best described as? And we hope that they're going to say that's the map legend. And so that's an example of a really quick way you can assess skills, even using multiple choice, by presenting something novel for students to take a look at. So again, this question is about Wisconsin. That was not something that we had shown in class before. So all the students were ready and knew that these assessments were going to present information that they had never seen before, and they were going to have to use their skills or their understanding or their knowledge to sort of figure out what's going on here. So I'm going to scroll down. You can look at those as you would like. If you go to my website, let me just say this, www.edtosavetheworld.com. So if you don't already follow the website, that's where all of these resources are found, www.edtosavetheworld.com. I'm going to skip through a lot of these things. So it's just showing how we are assessing. There's a bunch of multiple choice. We are assessing their ability to apply procedural skills or even conceptual understanding. In this case, we have this multiple choice here, and we have these new situations over on here on this side. These are new situations the students had never seen before, and we're trying to get them to apply these concepts to these new, so in most cases they were made up situations, so that we can see, do they understand what these concepts mean? And then the really cool part, you may have seen this before, is the novel situation analysis. So we want them to use their understanding of the relationship between freedom, resources, and migration in this new situation. So we give them a lot of information about the new situation. The introduction to our secondary book has this as an example. It doesn't have all of this information here because it just sort of shows the new situation that's happening in Central Asia with the RLC. So this picture is actually in our secondary book, where we're looking at, in 1989, this was the RLC was the 4th largest fresh body of water, and now it's drying up. And so a lot of people whose livelihood were dependent upon this huge lake, they've lost their industry, they've lost their livelihood, and so they're migrating. And so we want students to understand the situation and use their knowledge from class from previous situations about freedom, resources, and migration to sort of unlock the situation and give advice to the people of Kazakhstan about allowing migration from Uzbekistan. Section 3 of this sample assessment, it wants to assess whether or not kids are able to think like a geographer. And so it's giving them the opportunity to sort of use what they know to sort of think like a geographer. And so for this particular period in time, the students were understanding that geographers consider multiple perspectives that are tied to any issue. And so we want to know we want them to think about what's the most important thing to consider about people's reactions to immigration. And so we want them to know this is what they had been studying. We also said you can use this example of Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan. These were the other contexts that they studied in class. We want them to use examples from what they know to explain their answer about what's most important to consider about multiple reactions that people have towards immigration. And so we want them to consider multiple perspectives. That's what we're looking for in this particular case. And then the last section we always included on our assessments was about metacognition, having students reflect on their thinking. And we never really, it says here 5 points, but I think we never really actually graded that, or maybe we left that up to the teachers of whether or not they actually wanted to score that. But we wanted students to take the time to look back at their writing from the exam and decide where were they on this rubric about clarity. How clear were you? And we found by including this piece on the exam that students were much more conscious of their writing, and that you could see that they would go back and sort of edit their extended constructed response up here based on this prompt where we add them to go back and sort of evaluate their thinking. So we would see that they would do that, and they were incredibly fair in their own self-reflection and in how they are actually harsher than a lot of the teachers harder on themselves than a lot of the teachers. And this piece, what is one thing you could do to improve the clarity of your work, was also a really nice piece that we just wanted in that time where it's quiet. They know that they're being evaluated on this assessment, that they're really thinking about the quality of their work and what they can do to improve it. So that's an example assessment. If you have any questions, please reach out. Hope this was useful for you guys. Bye.